We've been following the bizarre breadcrumbs of the Squashlight case file for weeks now, and wow, we have finally reached the climax. Today, we're diving into this explainer on the explosive chaos of chapters 9 and 10. We'll look at the shocking fates of our characters and, crucially, what these latest developments suggest about where this dark folklore is actually taking us.
So, we're dropping right into the deep end here, literally in the middle of the action, at the exact moment chapter 9 erupts. Quote, "Boom went the bog," unquote. This is the sheer explosive chaos our three so-called spent hens are running from in absolute terror. You've got Carol Bell, the schoolmar, Miss Toshia, the Codex Keeper, and Old Lady King, the herbalist. They are just sprinting from the edge of the ancient bog into the chill night air, while this crazy succession of explosions just rocks the earth right behind them.
But, the physical danger of the booming bog, that's really only half the horror. As they run, this absolutely terrifying juxtaposition takes over. First Carol Bell, then Old Lady King, and finally Miss Toshia. One by one, their terrified screams involuntarily morph into this maniacal cackling. Just imagine the sheer psychological terror of that for a second. You are fleeing for your life from exploding swamp gas and chaotic magic, but your body is completely hijacked by spell-induced hysterical laughter. You literally can't run, you can only stagger.
Which brings us to the accidental curse. How exactly did three respectable women end up cackling like mad hedge witches? Well, to figure that out, we actually need to reverse engineer things just a bit.
Let's quickly trace the fuse here. Day 1, young Wat Wagahalter steals some sweeties and gets swatted by Miss Toshia's broom. Day 2, a spooked Old Lady King accidentally reads a protective spell in Latin. And then by day 3, that ancient bog magic shoots right up the pumpkin vines, dragging Wat into the quicksand and setting off those explosive bursts of swamp gas that basically birth a new magical creation.
So, the absolutely crucial point is understanding why these three specific women were hit by this magic. According to the source material, they accidentally formed a coven. The text explicitly points out that when older, single ladies, specifically not one under 25, with independent means and no husband prospects, convene to make plans, a supernatural opportunity just opens up. So by simply gathering around Old Lady King's fire, sipping tea, and planning to bake pumpkin pies for the children, they unwittingly opened a door for the powers of darkness. They essentially became a conduit.
Okay, moving on to sinking into the quicksand. That cackling spell we talked about, it isn't just some minor inconvenience, it actually proves to be their immediate downfall.
Check out this hilarious yet completely horrific domino effect. Carol Bell realizes more explosions are coming, right? But she starts cackling and staggers. Then Old Lady King repeats the warning, starts cackling herself, and falls directly onto Carol, sending them both tumbling straight into the quicksand pit. And then, not wanting to be outdone, Miss Toshia yells that she's already given up, grabs King's elbow, and literally springs into the muck with them. The text notes that their struggling just makes it worse, but as this accidental coven of witches, they are shrieking between worlds, completely lost to the hysteria.
The contrast here in Chapter 9 is just jarring. On one hand, you have the women in this incredibly dynamic, chaotic descent. They're human, they're panicked, and they're drowning in muck in their own uncontrollable laughter. But then, on the other hand, you have Wat Wagahalter. He's been expelled by the bog as this unusually orange pumpkin. He feels the explosions. His mind actually registers the tumult, but he doesn't move. He's just stationary, glowing, and completely unfeeling.
And then we hit this incredibly eerie sentence. Once the women finally slip completely beneath the surface of the bog, the laughter just stops. The screeching stops. Quote, "Then it was quite a peaceful place," unquote. The explosions are done, the hysteria has totally subsided, Wat just sits there and glows. It is a chillingly quiet end to a highly chaotic chapter.
Now let's look at the cleansing water. Chapter 10 gives us this incredibly mysterious, super brief snippet that completely changes how we view the consequences of that explosive night.
Because this is the absolute entirety of the excerpt we have for Chapter 10. Quote, "Finally, the three ladies walked into the cold, cleansing water," unquote. Let's just let that sit for a moment. After sinking into the quicksand of an ancient, magic-infused bog, they walk into cold, cleansing water.
So what you should really take away from this is a massive question mark regarding their fate. I mean, does walking into this water mean the women survived the quicksand? Do they pop out in some underground spring, physically alive? Or,
Given that they accidentally formed a coven and were completely consumed by bog magic, is this cleansing water actually a baptism into a supernatural transformation? Have they been cleansed of their humanity, stepping into a new realm alongside the fair folk and the bog spirits? The text just leaves us hanging right on that precarious edge.
Forecasting a lost soul. To really grasp where this story is heading next, we have to zoom out and remember exactly who is telling us this story and why.
Remember, this entire narrative is actually a final report submitted by an acolyte to an organization called the Lost Soul Society. And right in the introduction, the narrator gives us these specific, undeniable clues about our subject, Wat. We are told explicitly he is not Stingy Jack. He is not some mindless boggart acting purely on reaction and chaos. Instead, he has a definite, permanent form, and most importantly, he possesses a consciousness and a living soul. The text literally gave us the answers all along, way before Chapter 1 even started.
Unlike Stingy Jack, whose fate is completely sealed until the Day of Judgment and whose soul is thoroughly accounted for by the Society, our subject, Wat, has become the Squashlight. The narrator really emphasizes this difference to show that Wat's transformation isn't just your run-of-the-mill bog ghost scenario. The bog hasn't just killed a naughty boy. No, it has birthed an entirely new, highly conscious supernatural entity that now falls right under the jurisdiction of the Lost Soul Society.
But here is where we hit a massive narrative paradox. Think back to Wat's state at the very end of Chapter 9. The text says, large glowing pumpkins don't have feelings, and that's exactly what he had become. So how on earth do we reconcile this? The narrator promised us a subject with a living soul and a consciousness. Yet right now, Wat is an unfeeling squash. This tension right here is exactly what drives the future of the story. The transformation clearly isn't over. The realization of that consciousness is yet to come. Which brings us to our final thought. We know Wat has a living soul trapped in an unfeeling, permanent form. We know 3 accidental witches just walked into mysterious, cleansing waters. The board is perfectly set. So what will the Lost Soul Society do with Wat the Squashlight? Will they try to save him, study him, or contain him? The folklore is really just beginning to wake up, and I cannot wait to see where it goes next.